what in your, in y'all's practice, like does the doctor say how they want to do it, or why would somebody have to have them mixed up?
I have no idea why they would have it mixed up, because I tried not to do that. Now, Dr. Fonseca's schedule is a little different, because he can have his mixed up because he always has two fellows helping him.
Oh.
So if he is on a televisit, the fellow can be in the room with a patient. So for him, it's not so difficult. But with the other doctors, I would never just schedule a televisit here, in person, because it kind of makes them run late. Because what if registration is late at the front? The patient takes a while to get back in. This has happened before with Dr. Sahota, because sometimes they mix her schedule up like that. So, yeah. So what we'll try to do is let her do that virtual first before they lose the connection, and let the patient that's waiting in person let them know what's going on. That's what I try to do. But I always try to be consistent and have them all grouped together.
Yeah.
If not, it's just going to be a back and forth, because you got to understand the computer system that we're using is over here we got a webcam and we have cows, and sometimes the computer is we get the echo like we had when me and you logged in. Yeah. And the volume. So we had kind of some issues in the beginning that we had to kind of get kinked out to get it all rolling. Right.
Okay. Yeah. Gotcha. So, that's really helpful to know about that. Now, it sounds like I'm kind of curious about, from the point of view of the clinic staff, is there, like, what are the negative of it? I mean, it sounds like it's a lot of coordination and it's kind of time consuming on your side. Is that right?
Yes. It's time consuming on the nurse's side. Yes. Yes. The negative side of it is the internet connection.
Okay.
If the internet connection was I guess always wasn't a factor, I think it would be a lot better.
Mhm.
And I don't know if it's that, because even Dr. Gallagher said his internet works different at the med school, or when he's at home is different. So I think it's based on the internet connection. And if the patient is not at home in a home setting, like if they're in their car, I find those patients that we won't be able to get a good reception.
Okay. Mm-hmm. They can't, so they might not have the internet working.
Yeah, it won't work. I think it's the Wi-Fi. Yeah, they won't.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And if you were to think back about when it was just all the time in person only, do you how would you compare, between when you weren't doing telehealth with how you're doing it now?
How would I compare the in-person to a virtual visit?
Yeah, let's say, before the pandemic, were you all doing telehealth at all?
No, not at all.
Okay. So kind of since then, I know it's a lot to kind of remember. It seems like a long time ago before the pandemic, but,
right.
Would you say overall that the patient care was smoother, or, any of those kind of big changes that has happened, or?
No, I wouldn't say the patient care has changed since going virtual to in person. The only thing is that the patient has to make sure that they answer their phone, because there's a lot of follow-up phone calls, like back and forth. If I call them to schedule a test, whereas they're in person, I can give it to them right then and there. So I'm basically communicating with patients by phone and mail. And a lot of patients say, I didn't get the mail, I didn't do my labs, so stuff like that. So it's a lot of I'm on the phone a lot. Because I have to put appointments in the mail, lab orders in the mail. And some patients say they don't get it, and then I have to call them if to schedule a test. They don't answer, so it's a lot of back and forth,
Yes, I see that. That makes sense. So you're on the phone a lot. They might not answer, and I'm assuming they might not answer because they might not recognize the number or something like that.
I don't know. Are they at work? Some people just don't answer their phone. I don't know. It's a lot of back and forth. So I basically have to reiterate whatever the doctor does in their television and make sure that it gets done.
Right. And so obviously there's this issue that you were mentioning where some things that you need during the visit you can't do virtually, like a lab or like checking for neuropathy and swelling and stuff like that.
And nodules, thyroid nodules. You can't really palpate a thyroid nodule, over the phone and stuff like that.
Thyroid nodule. Oh, yes. Okay.
Yeah.
And so how do you handle that? Now, you mentioned you mail out orders for labs and stuff. So let's say just recently, if you can think of one patient who had to get labs done before or after a telehealth visit. Tell me about the whole process for getting those done.
Okay, so, all right, the doctor does the televisit. He put in his plan. He wants the patient to follow up in 3 months with labs. Okay. So then I mail the patient a reminder appointment and advise them to, and get the labs done before the appointment. Okay. So once the patient click on for the visit, the doctor, if they don't do the lab, usually I prep the schedule before. I call them like before their appointment and be like, you didn't do your labs. So I have to track them down why you didn't do your labs. That kind of thing. So the patient being compliant is a big factor with a televisit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So when you send them out like a slip to take to the lab, is it Quest or wherever they're going? And they
correct. Yes.
And
I mail them a lab order.
Okay, and they have to take that piece of paper to the lab, or else they won't be able to get it. Is that right?
Correct.
And if so, like for example, if they lose the paper, can they still look it up or no?
They'll call me and say that they don't they lost their lab or they didn't get it. Now, one thing about that, I have another app that I use with it, and with Doctors on Demand, and you can access everything off that app. So I wouldn't even have to mail a patient a lab order; it'll get straight emailed to them, or you can access it through that app.
Is that only if they have that app?
Well, that's another televisit app that I use personally.
Oh,
that works better than with the one that we use at work.
Right. Okay. So that's
everything I need is in that app. If they want a mail lab order, they don't have to mail lab order. It's going to be right there on my phone. You see what I'm saying? In the app.
Yeah.
Send it to me like that. Yeah.
Right. And what is the system that you all use with your office, like for the televisit?
Web EMR.
Web EMR. So that's how they connect for the visit.
Yeah.
They go on Web EMR. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously there's so many different ones. I mean, that you use, and I've heard of Doximity. I mean, there's so many.
Doximity we use Doximity when the patient, when the time run out and they can't log back in, or the connection issue, then the doctor will use the doximetry. But that's the only one I think Tulane can use is doximetry.
That's like a backup that you could use?
Yeah, if the patient, if we have a connection issue, but yeah, we can't use like a FaceTime, but they can use doximetry.
Right. Okay.
But I'm saying me personally, what I've used for my own use is Doctors on Demand. That's another app.
Right. Doctors on Demand. Yeah, that's okay. So, so coming back to the lab, like you mail the lab orders out, and hopefully the patient's compliant. They go and they get the lab done, and then you can see in the record whether the labs come available. And so when the upcoming televisit's going to happen, you know that, okay, they've got the lab. The doctor can see the lab in the system. Is that right?
Yeah, I have to, what they call prep the schedule. I review the schedule before their appointment, before their day, and make sure that they had their labs done.
Okay.
And track them down if they went to Quest, because sometimes they don't interface. I have access to Quest website, lab thing, and I can go on the Quest and get their labs and print them out for. And attach them to the visit for that.
So you have to do all of that. So most of the time, you're spending a lot of time on electronic systems and this site and that lab, this and
all
that.
Day.
All day.
I'm on the computer all day. When I'm in clinic, when the doctors have patients, I'm scheduling tests, making sure everybody had their labs done before their appointment. Because that's the only way to. I feel like if that's the only way the virtual visit will make sense for endocrine, if you have your labs. Otherwise, then that we won't have a baseline of where you are now. You know.
Right.
For diabetic and thyroid too. Yeah.
And thyroid. And how about, I mean, how did you learn how to use all these different systems? Would that be, do you think, a barrier for people using telehealth, like clinic staff? They have to learn how to use all these softwares and systems.